One.
That's recording right now.
I thought we were going to do like Wayne's World.
5, 4.
Welcome to episode 16 of Cooperators. I'm Incognito Bro, or Augmented Biscuits, and with me as always is Chuck and Dice. Say hi.
What, are you going to change your name all the time?
I guess I am.
All
yeah.
right.
What if I want to change my name to like Super Honey or something like that?
Super Honey?
I don't know. I got nothing.
I guess that would go well with Uncle Bumblebee.
That's true, Uncle Bumblebee. Actually, that should totally be our new nicknames.
Uncle Bumblebee and Super Honey?
Super Honey, Uncle Bumblebee.
The hell, we're like a kids band.
Exactly.
Okay, so we are at location right now. We're at the One Up, located in actually Sherman Oaks. I thought it was Studio City, but it's actually Sherman Oaks in California. The One Up is a barcade, basically. It's got food, it's got drink, and it has arcade cabinets, so people can enjoy retro video games. On the television, they have on all the televisions. They don't play sports; they play retro movies. Like I see Predator to your left, right there, Augmented Biscuits. In front of us is Ice Pirates. If anyone remembers that old science fiction film? Down near the arcade cabinets, they were showing Big Trouble in Little China. So basically, this is a bar made for people like us.
Yes, no sports whatsoever.
No sports whatsoever. People who, if you like video games, if you like drinking, if you like eating food, then this is a place to go to when you're in California. The One Up.
Also, if you like cult movies, this is also a place to go.
Yeah, if you like cult movies, but you won't be able to hear them because they don't have the sound on any of these things. So, like the cabinets here are basically retro cabinets. They're emulators. They're not real arcade, machines, which is good because those tend to break down real easily because of age. So, you can select a bunch of different different arcade games, retro ones, where the purpose is to get a high score rather than beat the game. Because back in the day, games were endless. They just kind of went on until you beat them. Today there's stories, which is good. I mean, that has its place. But this was back in the day when, games just kind of went on and on and on and on, and there was no end in sight. But the idea was to get a high score, kind of like that Billy Mitchell guy who got the high score in Donkey Kong, and Steve Wiebe, who was trying to beat him. Is that guy in a dinosaur suit? There's a guy in a dinosaur suit right now, dinosaur PJs. It takes all types. Plus, it's freaking hot out there.
Yeah, and that guy has some swamp ass right now.
Yep, it's a major swamp ass. So we tried the food out. I've been here plenty of times. This is Augmented Biscuits' first time coming here. What do you think so far?
Food is actually really good. I've been in a few gastropubs.
Right.
It can kind of vary. It can be hit or miss. So far, the food's really good. I got the bacon and brie burger,
right,
which is really good. It's got nice flavor. It's a very heavy burger, but there are hints of citrus and lemon in there.
Right.
So it kind of like lines up the burger a bit.
Right.
But it can be very heavy, but it's a very, very good burger. If you like a really good burger, I would recommend it, mainly because they actually do cook the doneness very well.
Yeah.
I ordered a medium burger, which was done very well. It's not overcooked. It's not well done or burnt or crisp. I got a side salad, which is great. I mean, you can't really mess up salad. It's got a balsamic vinaigrette.
You can if you went to the Fyre Festival.
That is true. We also got Captain Crunch chicken wings.
Captain Crunch chicken wings. So chicken wings made out of, I'm assuming, Captain Crunch cereal.
Yeah, so it seems like the batter for the coating for the Captain Crunch chicken wings, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Almost kind of reminds me of a pancake batter.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, I try to slather on the hot sauce to kind of neutralize it a bit, but it's still strong.
If you slather on the hot sauce, it's actually good, but the problem is that the wings are a little undercooked.
Right.
Which I'm not a fan of. So I'm going to take these home and throw them in the toaster oven and try them then.
Right. Give it to your kids?
Yeah, give it to I'm going to eat them.
Okay.
But another thing we did get that Chuck and Dice actually got were the corn dogs.
Yeah, the corn dog pops.
Were good on their own, but the 3 sauces they give you is actually what makes these corn dogs.
They give you a sriracha mustard sauce, which is actually a really great sauce.
It's a sriracha aioli, ketchup, and then they give you a mustard sauce.
Yeah, mustard, like a whole grain mustard, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's a whole grain mustard sauce. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
We did get alcohol. I got a pear cider, which isn't bad. My whole thing is I'm not a very big fan of beer, mainly because
the
beer
way cornflakes taste.
Yeah, beer to me tastes like soggy cornflakes.
Right.
Now, this cider that I got has a soggy cornflakes taste to it.
Does it?
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, it's a bottled one too.
Yeah, and it's a bottled one, so I'm not a very big fan of it. But Chuck and Dice, you got a Hefeweizen?
Yeah, Golden Road Hefeweizen. I like Hef. Not a huge IPA fan. It's weird. Like IPA just tastes weird to me, so I go with Hefs and mostly Pilsners and such. Mm-hmm. But I like a good crisp beer. I don't like a beer with an aftertaste.
Yeah.
And this Golden Road Hef, like, probably the best thing for me. Yeah, and that's the one up right now. I mean, we tried some of the video games. What'd you think of some of the games? You had a chance to play Gunsmoke.
I was playing Gunsmoke. I thought it was okay. I've never really played Gunsmoke before, but it's a little difficult. I mean, I don't remember.
It's a lot easier on Nintendo.
What was the original arcade layout? Because I feel like you needed 2 joysticks. Whereas this, you have 1 joystick and 3 buttons.
I think it may have been like 2 joysticks, where you move, and then the other one was your direction of your pistol. Whereas this setup is more like the Nintendo, where you one button shoots left diagonally, one button shoots right, and if you hold both down, you shoot straight.
Yeah.
And like you have to kill a bunch of I guess outlaws, and finally you hit a boss. Okay. I think there's like 6 bosses because they're like you basically see a wanted sign, and that's who you have to take down. And there's like a variety of different bosses. It's a real fun game on Nintendo because it's that sort of Nintendo hard where it's difficult, but it's not too difficult to beat. Mm-hmm. And when you kind of sort of master it, I never did myself, but when you do sort of master it, it kind of comes easy. It's weird. Like some of the old arcade games have that effect. Is that they were supposed to eat quarters, but for whatever reason, if you're dialed into that game, you will beat that game.
Yeah.
That game will be your bitch.
Yeah. It's funny. My dad was a huge fan of Centipede and Millipede.
Right.
He loved the trackball, and he loved. You're right. When there was times where he was in the zone, and he was like burning through levels like crazy.
Right. It's that weird you just become one with the game, and all of a sudden you're beating it like there's like no tomorrow.
I think the only game I've ever been like that would probably be Galaga.
Galaga for me is too. I'm always dialed into that game. Another game. I mean, this is not so much an arcade game, but I was always dialed into the Game Boy version of Mega Man 1. A lot of people find that a real hard game, and it is. But for whatever reason, I figured it out. And I know how to beat that game, with losing very minimal life as possible, whereas people will kind of die very often.
Yeah. Also, apologies if I burp because I am drinking.
Yeah. So I mean, we're eating, we're drinking, we're having a good time.
We're a little inebriated right now. Actually,
there's a party going on right now. Someone's 28th birthday party. It's a good place to take your friends for a birthday party or some kind of get together.
And please note, you can bring children here. Yeah, we actually did see a few underage kids.
Right.
Even though they do serve alcohol here and it is a bar.
Yeah.
They do allow kids in here. Just make sure you... I would imagine they're okay with it, but make sure your kids aren't drinking. Don't ruin it for everyone.
Nah, they shouldn't. Yeah, they will. But yeah, it's a fun little place.
And again, we can't iterate enough. This is very much a bar for those who do not like sports, who hate sports bars. I mean, that's my biggest gripe, is that I'm not a sports fan, so I hate sports bars.
Like, don't expect them to put on the Lakers game here, because they're not.
No, they're not.
And don't ask them to do that, because that's not the theme of the bar. There is a bar right next door that's a sports bar. I forgot what the hell it's called. Yeah. I think it's like the Woodman Bar, whatever.
It's a lame-ass bar.
It's a lame-ass bar. Go there, and then you can watch your damn sports. Yeah. But if you don't care for that stuff, and you want to like look at stuff on the screen that like will just catch your eye and kind of say, oh, I remember that, and they're like, oh, I've never seen this before. What's this called? Then this is the place to be.
Also, be aware, this place is a little pricey because it is a gastropub.
Yeah.
Prices for food and drinks can be a bit high.
But the games are free.
The games are free, yes.
So that they make up their price on that. Is that if you want to come here, have one beer, and go play the video games for like hours, if you're that type, go ahead. You can do that here.
Now, Chuck and Dice, you've been here before.
Yeah, many times now.
What time would you say is the best time to come here?
The best time to come here is weekdays. If you don't want anyone here and you just want to play video games and drink, you can come here in the afternoons. Friday and Saturday night, this place is hopping and it's really busy just because it's got that theme and a lot of people enjoy it. This place is always packed. Right now, we're here on a Sunday in an afternoon. Yeah. I imagine this is going to get a little bit busier, towards the night.
Yeah.
And I imagine like Thursday and Friday. Thursdays will probably be.
Yeah, we're here on the lunchtime as well.
Yeah, we're here on the lunchtime on a Sunday. People are at church or whatever. They're watching the game.
I mean, they're a little busy right now. They have people here, but it's not
packed.
It's not packed. Yeah.
We're not standing up. That's the one thing that when we decided to come down here, I didn't want to come here on a Friday. Didn't want to come here on a Saturday because that's where we'll be standing up and in line for games.
Yeah.
The thing about barcades too is that like when you find a good one, it's a good one and everyone knows it, and it's like not a Friday night hangout just because so many people go. And that's like the downfall of some barcades is that there are not enough of them, and people love them. But that's, it's a good or a bad thing, however you kind of see it. Staff's pretty nice here, They got a lot of weird decorations, there's like cage kind of.
They have some also
thing.
pop art as well. I saw on the other side of the wall they had some pop art.
Yep.
It was like Iggy Pop and Keith Richards, and it was actually cool.
Yeah. Oh, they're showing Flash Gordon on the screen right now.
I'm gonna ask them to put Predator because I don't want to watch Flash Gordon.
It's right over there. Predator's right to your left.
I know you're a fan of Flash Gordon, so
this movie's awesome. This movie does Phantom Menace, but it does it the right way. Back in 1980 when it mattered.
It doesn't take itself too seriously?
No, it doesn't take itself too seriously. Look at that. There's buttons that have natural disasters on it, and when you press it, it happens in a stock footage.
Where is Dino De
Laurentiis?
Yeah, De Laurentiis. What else did Dino De Laurentiis do?
He did a lot of stuff. I mean, he did Army of Darkness. He produced that.
Oh, nice.
He produced a lot of
No wonder it sounds familiar.
Yeah, he produced a lot of sort of these low-budget horror and science fiction movies.
Mm-hmm.
A lot he shot in Italy because it was really cheap to shoot there at one point. And
similar to spaghetti westerns.
Yeah, similar to spaghetti westerns. A lot of genre picks. I'm watching Flash Gordon right now. I can't help it.
Funny story. When I was younger, we went to the video store with my uncle and my aunt, and he rented Flash Gordon.
Right.
It was something he wanted to watch, with us kids. And he realized that he rented the porn version of Flash Gordon.
Oh, Flesh Gordon?
Yeah.
Oh.
And he didn't realize until we got home and he popped it in. He was like, wait a minute.
There's that, was it stop motion monster with the huge penis?
Yeah, we didn't get very far into it,
Right.
but he realized he fucked up.
Yeah.
And when you have kids wanting to watch a movie and you keep asking hey, why aren't you showing the movie? It was really awkward.
Yeah.
I didn't really make the connection until I was a little older and I realized his mistake, but that's my Flash Gordon story.
Right. Well, you missed a good movie.
Yeah. Wait, Flash Gordon or Flash Gordon?
Flesh Gordon.
Okay.
Obviously.
I just want to go watch Predator. That's all I want to do.
We don't got time to bleed and such.
So yeah.
I mean, it's a weird this area. This is the only place I would want to go to in this area too.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. Sherman Oaks, the Sherman Oaks area can be a bit of
it's a shopping district basically, but it's
a
not,
shopping district, but also a little higher class shopping district. But yeah, this is actually a really nice place to come to. Parking can be kind of a pain.
Yeah, it wasn't today because it's a Sunday and we found some parking down the street. Yeah. Weekdays, it's not really. You just have to pass Woodman, where that's where it's kind of off, and get to one of those side streets. Don't expect to park in front of it because everyone does that.
Well, look at it this way: it's a main street.
It's a main street.
The street's on is what street?
Ventura.
Ventura.
Yeah.
Ventura's a main street, and it's a main street for all the shopping and those shops. So just be aware that you can park on the side streets or whatever. But
leads into Studio City.
I honestly would recommend this for anybody, and especially if you're interested in retro games.
Yeah.
And you just want to come and relax at a bar and not have to worry about a bunch of sports.
Right.
And
it's a hangout.
It's a hangout. Yeah.
People, if you want to play retro games, and you say, "Oh, well, I can do that on the computer." Yeah, you can do it on the computer, but you can do it with friends too. Makes sense. People like to get together and hang out at places. And if you happen to like retro games, you happen to like retro movies, you happen to like all that stuff, you can go ahead and do that. One of the other things they have here is a 2-player machine where they have various 2-player games like Ninja Turtles, Avengers, Captain America and the Avengers, X-Men, stuff like that, Street Fighter 2, where you can play your 2-player co-op and versus games. Unfortunately, they only have one of those, and it's I always see people there.
That's the one downside to this place that I know is that they have a very small area.
Yeah. The games have the other retro games, they have 1 million games on there, but it's those old style games where it's high score stuff.
I kind of feel like I wish this place had an upstairs.
Yeah.
That had a bigger game area.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally they would have an upstairs area that had that had nothing but the arcades.
Right.
And had a bar, and then downstairs they had more tables.
Right.
I mean, they had the same layout they have here, but it was more for like if you want to eat, you can stay downstairs.
If you want to do stuff, kind of like a Dave and Buster's.
Kind of like Dave and Buster's, but not as commercialized.
Not as douchey.
Yeah. Better food.
Better food. Although I do like Dave and Buster's because it did introduce to me Pac-Man Battle Royale, which I think is the most awesome game ever.
I don't think I've ever played that.
It's basically Pac-Man versus.
Oh, okay.
So like you're all Pac-Men, and you're all going through the maze. You're being chased by ghosts. But when you get the power pellets, there's different types of pellets. You can eat ghosts, and you can eat other Pac-Men.
Oh, okay.
And you can also get like Super Pac-Man big, where you can
eat the entire stage.
Yeah, you can start eating basically. And then like if you're just normal Pac-Man, you ram into each other. You push each other, so you can actually conceivably push people into ghosts and stuff like that. It's a really fun concept. Right now, like on Flash Gordon, the character of Flash is on the screen, played by I forgot his name, but if you guys don't know, his voice in that movie, that's not his real voice. He got into a little disagreement with Dino De Laurentiis, and basically Dino said, like, he basically shot the movie with him in it, and said, okay, take out his voice and dub it over.
Really?
Like, yeah, completely. So that guy, like, basically, he's trying to get into the acting scene, and the other thing I've ever seen him in, but I hear that he was in Ted.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. The only other thing I've ever seen him in was Zork, Return to Zork, which is a computer, like, FMV game. And, like, that's the only thing I've ever seen him. And I haven't seen Ted, so I guess he was.
He's actually really good in Ted. He's like just like totally coked out and just fucking crazy.
Right.
He was great. He was great in it. But
all right. Do we have anything else? I mean,
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, we're gonna take a pause here, and we'll get back to the show right now. We just wanted to do this little field trip segment. We're hoping that we can do more since we have a new recorder which can record both our voices at the same time. But stay tuned, and we'll get back to you.
Welcome back to Co-Operators, episode 16. We just got back from our field trip to One Up Barcade.
Yes, we did.
And right now we're going to talk about we're going to talk about everything else that we didn't get to at Barcade because it was too goddamn loud.
It's too loud. And we are not streaming today because we were having a little difficulty with some equipment. So we're just recording off the portable mixer here.
Chuck and Dice fed the Mogwai after midnight.
Yeah. So but let's get started. You'll see this later. Let's talk about The Void, a film that you and I both saw over the week. It's a new horror film by directors Jeremy Gillespie and Steven Kostanski. It's a Canadian horror film, if I'm not mistaken. It was also a crowdfunded one as well. Yeah. There was a lot of people crowdfunding this film. So let's talk about the film. Let's talk about what it's about. So you want to go ahead and do that?
So The Void, I remember seeing the trailer for The Void on IO9. It looked like a very throwback to older, late 80s, I would say 80s, early 90s creature effect movies like The Thing, Hellraiser, and any kind of John Carpenter movie from that era. It also had some the trailer had some mentions of a cult, and so I was really interested in this. And that's the great thing about Amazon is Amazon Video tends to have a lot of these indie horror movies seemingly earlier than than are usually released. They also usually tend to have them sooner than like Netflix or Hulu. I know Amazon is they do a lot of times have this stuff available when it's still in theaters. I wasn't able to actually see this movie in theaters. I couldn't actually find a theater that was showing this in theaters.
Yeah, I would have loved to watch this in the theater. Yeah, this is something that you should watch in the theater if you get a chance.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the audio and stuff.
Yeah.
But so the premise of this is it starts off with two guys killing a couple in a farmhouse in the woods, and they end up being trapped with. It ends up coming into a hospital scenario where the local sheriff gets stuck in a hospital with a few other people, and they're surrounded by cult members, and these cult members are wearing white hoods with a black triangle, in the face,
which is it's a great.
It's
look.
really creepy.
Yeah,
and
it's a
great.
great look.
And they all have knives, and they're surrounding the hospital. And these two guys you see from the beginning are also trapped in there. So it almost seems like kind of like a siege-like movie where they're trying to escape, but they got to confront this cult member. This cult.
Yeah.
I guess they're a cult essentially, but it kind of it starts off. You'd think it's a siege movie, but then it kind of just hits a certain stride and starts getting really crazy. You start getting weird things like, creature effects that are
tentacles almost
like creature effects and tentacles and stuff that kind of harkens back to, like I said, The Thing.
And very H.P. Lovecraft.
Execution. And this is all practical effects.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
very little CG.
I'm trying to think if there was any instances where I can notice the CG. I think maybe the only instance might have been some blood splatters.
Yeah, I would say the blood splatter because I don't mind that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the creature effects were really there. There's a weight to them. They shot it a certain way, so it didn't look as just look as fake on screen or whatever.
And there's also a mystery behind the cult and what their agenda is. But
we're not gonna spoil it. But
there's also a certain There's also try not to spoil, but there's also a motivation for a character in the movie that it's not really a huge reveal, but it lends itself very well to like Chuck and Dice mentioned, H.P. Lovecraft, things like Hellraiser, things like that.
Like I'd imagine if someone would watch this film, it's not a typical the sort of films that you watch horror movies in the movie theater nowadays. Mm. Nowadays it's very very similar to I guess like Paranormal Activity or what's that movie about I haven't actually seen them like Conjuring.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's in theaters right now. These sort of extreme polished supernatural thrillers.
Yeah, they seem very, very polished as compared to the movies Chuck and Dice and I grew up with. Yeah. Horror movies nowadays are very, very polished and they're very kind of
clean.
Very clean, high production value. They're still trying to kind of catch that essence of indie. Yeah. Of indie movies, but
grit.
Or indie horror movies, but they're still way too polished. Whereas the movies Chuck and Dice and I grew up with were more of a they try to do the best they could with the minimalist amount of money they were available to.
Right.
Again, I keep mentioning this, but like John Carpenter. Have you ever seen John Carpenter films like Halloween? Yeah. I mean, Halloween is a great movie, a great example of what The Void kind of follows. Yeah. In the first half, which is very minimal.
Halloween 2, actually, if you want to say that.
Very minimal. Very little is related to the audience. You're not really told anything. The audience needs to figure these things out by themselves. But also, it's very intense and it has a very good score, very good build up, and it's. I would say it's very much. I think what I enjoyed about this movie was, if you really pay attention to the movie, you make connections. The connections to the conclusion of the movie make sense.
All right.
If I'm making any sense, like it's not something that comes out of left field. It makes sense. Like things that are said earlier in the movie, when you go back and you watch it again, you're like, okay, that makes perfect sense. That's something that. It's not something unexpected. It was something that was actually built up and referenced before. It's not just like, I would say maybe like kind of like the Blair Witch where suddenly this happens and it's just like, this is very much a very well thought out movie. Yeah. It's not. It's a very tight experience. It's like again, it's not a super production, highly polished movie, but it's also not a kind of low budget, crappy.
It's not like a Asylum Entertainment film.
Yeah, it's a very well done, very tight, very well told movie. Actually, and I really enjoyed it.
No, yeah, I dug it too. I mean, I liked it of the effects. I like the sort of feeling of being trapped. It kind of reminds me of old Night of the Living Dead. I'm also it reminds me some of the sequences remind me of stuff that you would find in a Lucio Fulci film. Particularly, I think it was called the Gates to Hell. I think that's what the film was called. Stuff like that, and you have all these weird supernatural things happening. Whereas Lucio Fulci, he did have weird supernatural things happen in his like horror films, but they didn't make any sense. I mean, like that's kind of the downfall of those old 70s style horrors, that stuff would happen, but it looked cool, but there was no bearing to like what would be happening in the story. It also reminds me, towards the end, it kind of gave me like flashbacks when I saw the second Hellraiser film. Not so much the first one, but the second one. Just like the imagery and stuff like that. And when you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and the reason why we're being a little being very vague on this, there's if we elaborate any more, it kind of ruins the experience and ruin the plot of the film.
Right.
One thing I also enjoyed about this movie quite a bit were the characters. I think every character was very well written and very fully formed. You didn't have characters that just decided to be victims and were like these new horror movies. You have characters who are just dumb, like they're not believable characters. I know this is something we had talked about personally. Was Prometheus? Was you had these characters in these intense, frightening situations or unknown situations, but they were just dumb. They were scientists who are supposed to be experts in their field, but they just acted they just acted like, like a typical horror trope, Right. I think these characters, again, the characters were very well written. They weren't. You couldn't fit any of these characters in any kind of trope. Like they weren't stupid. They weren't. You didn't have the bimbo. You didn't have the jock. You didn't have the nerdy guy who knows everything. You just had people dealing with the situation in a believable way, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, I grew up on those kind of movies too, where you had these stereotypical characters, and they kind of went through the whole like motions of a horror movie. But as I got older, I appreciate more characters being written as normal, realistic reactionary people.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a character that you kind of like want to root for.
I actually rooted for all the characters in this movie.
No. I like
except for the protagonist.
Oh, I like the protagonist though. I thought he was badass.
Would you say that the protagonist's story was sympathetic? So you actually did it made you sympathize a bit with the protagonist's motivations?
I think I kind of sympathize him because he was. And this is a big thing about like films today. There's films that are based on like superheroes, and like we and those are fine because those are larger than life characters that we know of in another medium. But sometimes when a film comes out, they'll like make the film about let's say like I don't know, like an assassin or this really badass person that has no flaws whatsoever. I'm mostly talking about like the Michael Bay type characters and stuff like that, where there's nothing really you don't identify with. It's like this guy, oh, he's cool for the sake of being cool. And like I would argue that like maybe video game movies do that a lot as well, like games about video game movies based on video games. And so it's like there's nothing there for me to be attached to, whereas these like protagonists are basically normal people. They have problems. They're ordinary Joes, and like it's a difference between I don't know what's that movie with Mila Jovovich, Ultraviolet. To say like Sarah Connor from the first Terminator. Like Sarah Connor from the first Terminator, you saw her life before all the Terminator stuff happened. She was a waitress, and kids would like throw ice cream into her like pockets while she was like taking orders. And
even that example, you saw the natural transition from her being an everyday normal person in the first Terminator to the second one, where she's a badass. Militaristic badass who was very well prepared because she found out that her job is to set her son up to save the world.
Yeah, which I think is it's a really great thing that it's a really great setup, and that way I can understand why she's the badass now rather than just kind of assume that she's the badass, and I can root for that person.
Yeah,
I think I don't think we ever talked about it because I never really finished the show. But like I think the problem with Iron Fist is that it's a character that I just don't identify with. Like it's a rich kid coming home trying to get his like family's fortune back, and I'm just like, that's great.
No, would you say would you say it works in a certain way? Would you say it would work because he is a rich kid who didn't know anything else, and now he's coming back and he's just very naive about everything.
Yeah, but you.
Or do you think it's mainly the problem is the writing?
The problem is that if you're going to make a character like that, you can't just make him as the character, and people will say that, oh, maybe Colleen Wing is the person that you have to follow around. Although I felt Colleen Wing was just such an East Coast type person. I'm not a guy who identifies with much of the kind of like the livelihood. I'm not mocking it. I just don't understand some of like the East Coast attitude much, and some people don't understand the West Coast attitude. I certainly sometimes don't. I'm from the Midwest, so I kind of like understand what I know. That's why a lot of the movies that I like do have a Midwest sort of mentality. They're either from a town, not small enough town where everyone knows each other, but enough to a small enough town to be quiet and whatever and sort of serene. And then something big happens. Aliens invade. Let's go find a pirate ship. I'm the last starfighter, stuff like that. Even if you look at a fantasy film like, The New Hope, like Star Wars, Luke is just like a farm boy who just has like guardians who don't want him to do anything and just want him to work on the farm forever. I mean, I think a lot of people can identify that, if they had parents like that. With Iron Fist, he's the one thing is different from him and Batman. At least we saw the trauma of Bruce Wayne and we felt it. Whereas here, I don't feel like we felt the trauma. It's just kind of a character, and that's the thing is that with the difference between a character like Iron Fist and the characters of the Void of the sheriff. I think his name is Daniel. You see all facets of him. Like when you first see him in the first scene, he's sleeping in the back of his. He's a sheriff, so he's sleeping in the back of his car.
Yeah.
And when he comes in, he's doing a job that his dad used to do. So a lot of the people say, well, your dad was better at this job than you were. It's that's not of course, obviously you want to hear that, but people are going to give that to you because of that.
Yeah. And his reaction to it all and him making the best out of the situation is great. I mean, his reaction to it all was, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Why are we still here? We need to leave. Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect reaction that anybody would have. Yeah. If anybody's thrust into a situation like that, their first reaction is it's either fight or flight.
Yeah.
And his was flight. And I was saying protagonist, but I actually meant antagonist.
Oh, antagonist.
Antagonist before. And the antagonist's motivation also made sense to me, and I as the way the antagonist is written and his motivation, I can sympathize with that as well. And it's great that they kind of make that connection, with the rest of the cast, Right. And it's I don't know, I really it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly why I love this movie so much, but it just seemed very, very. There was nothing wasted.
Yeah,
there wasn't any kind of excess, any kind of fluff.
I like horror films that aren't I watch all types of horror films, and there's horror films that are a little bit more real. They're about real killers and such, like flesh and blood killers and stuff like that. And then there's slasher movies that portray these serial killers as sort of invulnerable juggernauts. People always remind me the first Halloween's great, and I like the first Halloween, but for some reason I really like movies that kind of are these nightmarish tales, almost like The Cabinet of Dr. Kilgore, or later on Nightmare on Elm Street style, where it's just unbelievable situation that's happening, and it is literally a nightmare. Stuff doesn't make sense, stuff is happening, and you have to kind of figure it out on the way, and it's stuff that you're not prepared for, but then later on you kind of have to rise up to that occasion and figure out what to do. And I feel that there's not enough of that. I feel that most horror movies are made about supernatural, or very, very supernatural, very that sort of unsolved mysteries type supernatural, where stuff just happens and it just happens for the sake of happening, kind of thing.
So I'd say check it out. Yep. if you can. If you are a fan of horror movies and you do like those throwbacks to Cronenberg and Carpenter, I'd say definitely check out The Void. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
It's got a lot of different levels.
And it's great. I mean, I wish I would have watched this in theaters, but
that's the thing. If you can find it in theaters, go watch it. If you find just Amazon, go ahead and watch that too. But it's a great film. Let's move on. We're going to talk about we went last week. The Renaissance Festival, or I guess it's called the Renaissance Pleasure Fair now. I don't know if that's what it's always been called or not. I've been to the Renaissance Festival a lot. I've always wanted to kind of dress up, but I've never like actually done it, you know. But what do you think of this? Because this is your first time going?
Yeah, it's my first time going. I actually enjoyed it. One thing I did not enjoy was the dirt. I do not like going to any kind of fair or festival that is primarily set in dirt.
Yeah.
Funny thing is the weekend before we actually went to the Renaissance Festival, I actually went to another fair. It was more like a family fair for like Easter.
Yeah.
And that was in a dirt lot, and I hated it because dirt gets everywhere, and dust gets everywhere, and you breathe in. But the Renaissance Fair was fun. It was nice. It was I've never been to one. It was a lot of eating. It was a lot of arts and crafts. They had a few rides for the kids and stuff. A lot of drinking.
A lot of drinking, yeah.
Chuck and Dice and I did have a lot to drink. Me more than anything. We did eat a lot. Again, the whole point of a fair is for fair food. So there were funnel cakes and turkey legs. There was also fish and chips. There's nachos. There's kettle chips, things like that. A lot of different kind of foods.
Corn slathered in butter.
It was great. It was funny because Chuck and Dice got a corn on the cob, and the way he explained it was, he's like, I'm just gonna get a cob.
Yeah, and then like the guy goes, "You want some butter on that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so he takes my cob and he dips it in the biggest bucket of butter ever. Just kind of stirs with it and hands it to me, and it's just butter at that point.
Was your heart hurting at that point?
Oh man, like I took a bite out of that thing. I mean, I'm not gonna say it didn't taste bad. It tasted good.
It was the greatest thing ever, but it's also the worst thing ever.
It's the worst thing ever for you. Yeah. But it was fun. I mean, we didn't really get to stay long, but
it was nice walking around.
Nice walking around.
Dressed up.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
It was cool. I will say, if you've never been to Renaissance Festival, there are people who, a lot of people dress up, but even more people, they will go in character and they will stay in character all day. So we actually had a few people who were walking around. There was one guy particularly while walking around where everybody was set up eating. He was just kind of like making observational remarks to people, and some of them were kind of funny. Some of them were a little rude, but that was the whole point of the character. Was he was just walking around making observations.
It's basically role playing.
Role playing, yes.
Or I guess LARPing.
LARPing. Yeah. This year, I know that's something that caught your eye, Chuck and Dice, was they actually were renting costumes out.
Yeah, I have never seen that before. I'm not sure if they've been doing this for a while, but they were renting out costumes so that you could, just kind of wear it for the day.
And get into the
spirit and the character of that thing.
They also had bar hopping.
Neat. Yep.
$50, which I thought actually was a good deal. You pay $50, you got a mug.
Yeah.
And you got a drink from that mug every station that they had alcohol.
Was it that's built in the cost of the $50?
I think so. Yeah, that was you pay for the ticket, but then you pay an additional $50 when you walk in for that if you want to do the bar hopping. I think that's what it was. We did have some mead. Chuck and Dice had a bit of it.
Yeah, first time of having mead.
Was way too sweet for him.
Right.
I ended up drinking it all, but I regretted it that night because that destroyed my stomach. I mean, I was in the bathroom all night. Got very little sleep that night because I was, holding on to the porcelain.
Yeah.
I was praying to the porcelain god. But overall, it's fun. It's actually a lot of families go there too. If you have kids or anything, it's nice to go with your family. They did have rides for little kids as well. I mean, they had this giant swing. They had I think they had a little roller coaster for kids too.
Well, it wasn't so much
more like a cart.
Yeah, a cart. They kind of.
They had archery. They had knife throwing.
Fencing.
Fencing. Yeah. A lot of crafts you can buy.
Now the thing about this is that the Renaissance, when you go inside, it all costs money. Everything costs money.
Everything costs money.
So you're looking at an experience that probably is going to cost you upwards to $100 if you want to buy something. Yeah. Maybe $200. So
food is pricey as well.
Yeah. So expect to spend money on this. You're not gonna go because it's like $30 to get in.
Yeah.
You might get a discount here somewhere, but
And also, this fair usually runs around the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
So when we went, it was around 85 degrees, so it was warm. So make sure you take your sunscreen.
Yeah.
But there was, I'm glad we didn't go the weekend before or actually we were supposed to go. we were supposed to go.
We're supposed to go Saturday.
So we were supposed to go Saturday. We ended up going on a Sunday, but we were supposed to go Saturday, and we're actually glad we didn't come Saturday because that day was like 90 degrees.
Yeah.
This was in Irwindale, by the way, in California. It was like 95 degrees on Saturday, but on Sunday it was 85. But be prepared to wear some sunscreen. Also, be prepared to have to clean your shoes because there was a lot of dust going on.
Yeah, when I got home, I had to wipe down my shoes because those are shoes I'd wear at work and stuff.
Same here. My wife had to wash her feet because she was wearing open-toed shoes and she had dirt. Well, not open-toed, but she was wearing shoes that she had no socks on her shoes. She was wearing like slip-ons essentially.
Right.
Another thing is if you do have allergies, be aware because there's a lot of hay.
Yeah.
And pollen.
Which I'm slightly. It does. I do break out in rash if I get in contact with hay with
But overall, it was fun. I know Chuck and Dice did point out there was cool things like the time travelers area, people who showed up.
Dress up like Star Trek, dress up as Doc Brown or whatever.
But it was great that I thought that was clever that they incorporated people. Like they incorporated them into the fun. They were called time travelers.
Yeah.
They had people dressed up as pirates. They had people dressed up as
someone was dressed up as Ash from Ash versus Evil Dead,
which was great. By the way, we actually should have interviewed him.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun experience. I would recommend it. It'll cost you a dime or a couple pennies, couple dimes. It won't cost you as much as the Fyre Festival.
Oh, the Fyre! Let's talk about the Fyre Festival.
Let's talk about that
for a little bit.
So the Fyre Festival happened happened is not the right word.
Was it
for
this past weekend?
It was this past Friday. People showed up on Thursday for the Fyre Festival, and they were going to celebrate this sort of lavish experience run by Ja Rule. And
remember Ja Rule from the 90s?
Yeah, remember him. And they were going to have Blink 182. You guys remember Blink 182?
Also from the 90s and 2000s.
That great band that you used to listen to back in the day.
I have a friend who still listens to that band to this day.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
So, yeah, they had this big, huge plan. Tickets were $12,000. Some were $365,000.
I think minimum was $1,200.
Some people were saying that they were spending $8,000 on tickets.
Yeah, no,
like that,
I think bare minimum was $1,200.
Right. Which is really expensive for a music festival that's only a weekend.
Yeah, and the whole thing was it was run by Ja Rule and another promoter, and they were building this up as this exclusive luxury music festival on an island in the Bahamas, exclusive island in the Bahamas that I guess Pablo Escobar used to own.
Right.
And it was supposed to be this really high class, really fun, great music festival. And if you have
Pablo Escobar, the drug dealer, the drug lord,
yeah, drug lord. And for those of you who know, it was a scam. They don't want to admit that it's a scam, but if you look at pictures, it was a scam. So one of the biggest things what they were supposed to have these villas, these really luxury villas, luxury suites or villas.
Yeah.
And when people got there, they were refugee tents.
Yeah, basically they're the FEMA tents for
yeah. They said that there was no stage built. There was a concierge. I think my favorite picture was there was a concierge station, and all it was the wooden frame. Of a.
It says concierge.
A wooden frame of a concierge podium, and it had a sign that said concierge. And that's it. Yeah. That was it. It wasn't even completely built.
Yeah.
This thing was a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
I mean,
the most infamous image is of the cheese sandwich. They were basically. I heard through the news outlets that they planned this where they were going to get this 5-star caterer to come in to cater the entire festival, but early on this month, the beginning of April. That 5-star caterer says, you don't have the infrastructure to support us. Also, you haven't paid us yet, so we are not going to be participating in your festival. So I guess what they did was got some last-minute local whatever person working, and they were able to acquire loaves of bread, cheese, and almost like those Kraft single types.
Yeah.
Some peanut butter and lettuce and tomato.
Yeah.
Which people called a salad. I would argue that was just the fixins that you would put on the sandwich.
That is true.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody forgot the meat. I don't know.
Maybe.
But it was a disaster.
Yeah, it was a disaster and it was fun.
And people were stranded as well. I heard that one of the other big stories was that people's luggage was just put in a big wheeler trailer.
Yeah,
and they just dumped it out. They just dumped people's luggage out, and it was just a giant mess. I mean,
yeah.
And I guess the reason why we bring this up is because of social media, these people who paid an exorbitant amount of money to go to a music festival were blasting Twitter and Facebook and any other social media platform with how they had been scammed. And I guess I honestly want to sympathize with them, but as a person who is not privy to paying, thousands and thousands of dollars for a music festival, and who cannot afford to, fly to the Bahamas for 2-3 days, I mean, this is like, I don't know what you say, chicken dance. They got kind of a taste of what everybody else has to deal with on a daily basis.
Right. Like, I've been to music festivals before. I've been to I've been to Burning Man, been to Lightning in a Bottle, been to Hookah Fest in Ohio, and those are music festivals that are for people who are kind of well off can go to, but also people of middle class, or even people who don't earn a lot of money at all can go to a Burning Man. That's the tickets for those cost like $420. But when you get there, you have to go on survival mode because it's a big desert. You have to have tent. You have to have infrastructure. And in this case, in those music festivals, you kind of have to create that on your own. And they'll provide some stuff. It's like some music festivals actually have food trucks and stuff like that show up, and they'll just sell food at stands and stuff constantly throughout the night. And I guess Ja Rule wanted to maybe looked at those and said, "Oh, I want it to be high class." And the other guy is, I believe his name is Bill McFarland, is the other guy who's also been, Bill McFarland, who's also been roped in. He's roped in a lot of people in different kind of scams, because that's what it is. And they saw it and oh, we'll make it high class. Everything will be high class, and this will be high class. Yet I don't think they knew how to plan that kind of event. Yeah. They just didn't know that you have to pay people beforehand.
Yeah,
they're not going to just show up. They're going to okay, give us money and we'll show up.
For example, was their headliner Blink-182. They pulled out.
Yeah,
because 1, they didn't get paid, and 2, they said that the event organizers couldn't promise them any kind of security. They couldn't set up any kind of infrastructure for them to fly in and perform.
Yeah,
they essentially said they did nothing for us, and on top of not paying us, on top of not being paid, they couldn't promise them anything. So there was no reason for them.
There's no reason for them to show up and do anything.
There was no incentive for them to show up and put on a show. So yeah, that's one of the big stories out there right now, and we only really bring it up because I feel like we need the Nelson laugh right now.
Yeah. One of the things that I did dig about that this entire maybe experience is, it does maybe teach these rich kids a little lesson about life and such. In the aftermath of all this, Brian McFarland said, "Oh, we'll have a big thing next year." It's I don't think I hope that they're smart enough to say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
I hope that happens, because if it happens, if they go again and whether it's a success or not, no one's learned anything.
Yeah. This is obviously a scam.
Yeah.
And this was something that, when was this planned? When did this start becoming a thing?
I think I want to say that it was a couple months ago or 3 months ago. It was being advertised by, all these Instagram girls, including Kendall Jenner, who's already had enough on her plate right now because of that Pepsi, fiasco, the Pepsi ads.
So would you say 4, would you say 5 months tops?
Yeah, I would say so. That's enough time to plan a festival though. So, but I'm not sure if this magnitude on an island.
But an unknown.
Yeah.
A brand new unknown festival in 5 months on a fucking island in the Bahamas. Right. It's not even in the continent. It's not even. You're not even in the United States.
Right. You're in another country, basically.
In another country,
yeah.
On a fucking island.
So I get
an unknown
I guess if you're in the U.S., that would be enough time. I don't know if it's enough time to do it in international waters where you have.
And it wasn't even an actual company. It was because Lollapalooza and Burning Man, there's there's a company behind putting those festivals up.
Yeah, Burning Man, it's less of a corporation. I think Lollapalooza is more of like a different types of sponsors. Burning Man doesn't really have sponsors, but it does have a council that plans all this stuff.
Yeah, and so like for you, that should have been the first flag. Like not even any kind of like corporation or even a small council that's already established, like putting this up. Like,
and like they've done it like all these different festivals. They've done it for years now. They know how to do it. I just don't know. Like, I wonder if they like went up to some of those people who planned it. Like, I know straight up the Burning Man people would probably just turn them down. But like people like Lollapalooza, people like Lightning in a Bottle, people like Coachella, they probably went up to them and say, "Oh, can you help out with this?" Sure. It's like, and maybe they just like, "Okay, we need this to happen." And they probably said, "Okay, so how much money are you going to pay me?" Like, "Oh, we'll talk about cash later." And it's like, "No, we'll talk about cash now."
Yeah.
And then like that's probably why.
Never worked for free.
Yeah. And there was like stuff that was over there that looked like like you said, half built and not ready for people to come by and start.
It mainly seems to be the problem that they didn't have the cash. They did not have the cash flow to pay vendors and construction and anything. I mean, what do you think? I mean, at that point, where do you think all the money went? It probably just went to that. To either Ja Rule or
I think it was Ja Rule and Ben McFarland probably got all the money, but now they got to refund all these people, and then they made some I think they said like for $1.50 for each ticket, it's going to go to a relief fund of some sort. I don't know.
Relief fund for who? Rich kids.
I
Rich
don't
kids
know.
who fucking were
they
traumatized?
they weren't really in danger or anything.
I mean, the one good
they had to
thing
live off of Chex Mix.
Apparently, the one goodwill thing that happened was the airline that was the airline that was one of the main airlines in and out of the Bahamas. They actually apparently they got a lot of goodwill and a lot of thank yous because they did a very bang up job of getting people on flights and out of the area. Bahamas. Don't get scammed, people.
Yep, watch out for the scams. I guess we're going to move on to a game that just came out of the PlayStation Network called the Sword Coast Legends. It's about $7.
Oh, it's been out for a bit.
Oh, it's been out for a bit.
It's on for sale.
It's on for sale at the PlayStation Network. It's about like $7.99 or something like that, or $6.99. I forgot.
Yeah.
It's an RPG that's based on, I guess, the Dungeons and Dragons world. It's the was it Forgotten Realms?
It's Forgotten Realms.
Forgotten Realms. If you guys know D&D, if you know Forgotten Realms, it's a fun little world that's a subset of D&D. They even talk about the Neverwinter, which is the other kingdom or town over. I don't know what the hell it is. But you get to create a character. This has the unique ability to be a game master or a dungeon master as well. Online, so you can create your own adventures.
You can create a campaign online.
Yeah.
I've tried a little bit. It's a little clunky. The interface is a little clunky. But you can create can have up to 5 players.
Right.
Four people who are playing the normal campaign, and then you have the dungeon master.
Right.
And then the dungeon master in real time can drop in enemies, traps, things like that. Treasure, I believe, as well. We played a little bit of it. We didn't play. We didn't play together, but we played separately. We played the campaign, the story. This game also does have a story mode for single player.
Right. It's not too bad. It's kind of interesting, but
it's your typical Baldur's Gate, isometric RPG.
You're like guiding these like villagers to a kingdom or whatever because they're all refugees. Yeah. And then you have all these like different side quests to do.
The combat's very much like an MMO. It's top view MMO. Like. You're not. It's not tactical or turn based like Divinity was. It's actually real time. You're button mashing, casting spells like that. Yeah. The one thing the biggest gripe Chuck and Dyson had, Chuck and Dyson and I had was similar to the Dungeons and Dragons online game is that there's way too much goddamn text in this game.
And like you can't increase the font of the text. I can't read anything.
Yeah,
I'm sitting on my couch and they throw a text like a big text blob at me, and it's like story stuff, but there's no voiceover. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like kind of squinting and trying to read the stuff, and like it's like someone opening a paperback, but it's at the length from my couch to my TV.
This is definitely a game that it would be better played on PC as opposed to console. Yeah. And this is one thing we were talking about recently was there seems to be kind of a trend with these MMO games that are released on console. These are games that have already been established on PC and then they get ported to the console, but they're not. When they get ported, the ports aren't taken into consideration console mechanics, but also console viewing. I mean. Right. besides us mentioning Neverwinter D&D Online, there was also the Star Trek game. Star Trek game.
Yeah, Star Trek
had a lot of text.
It had a lot of text, and like it was small text, and I couldn't increase the font of it. I mean, like, if you're going to do that to me, you're going to have to say less things, like maybe shorten it, condense the dialogue, or just voice over the entire thing so I don't have to read any of the text.
Final Fantasy XIV did a very good job, because they mainly they had text, but it was because people were so used to the text when playing Final Fantasy games, it was similar to that. They had quick text. It wasn't this giant lore or anything. Some of it was spoken. There was another MMO we played recently that was a lot of spoken dialogue, which is great. So I think that's
DC Online, right?
Yeah, DCU Online. A lot of it was spoken dialogue, which is great because you didn't have to sit there and read, paragraphs and paragraphs of text. I also Elder Scrolls Online, same way. They had a lot of voiceover.
Yeah.
But this thing was hard to read.
Yeah, it was just really tough to read, and that's the sort of downfall of it. I would have liked to play it, and I would have liked to create like stuff, but I just didn't want to read all the directions and stuff like that. It was just way too small.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on it right now, but I have this like sort of camping chair that I'm sitting right now while recording this. I like when I was playing a little more, I had to like break this out and go right in front of my television, and just kind of like start reading it from there, and it's still kind of tough. It's like this is only perfect if you're playing this on your laptop or your desktop and you're just at a desk, and I don't game like that anymore, so I don't have a desktop where I play my games.
And the game was still a bit unpolished as well. There were still a few technical hiccups, a few like kind of collision issues, things like that. I mean, it was fun. I actually enjoyed the combat because I liked that freeform, that real-time combat. But again, it's just very difficult. It's a very difficult barrier of entry when you can't read what the hell you're reading. You can't read what they show you.
Right.
And, again, way too much text. But it was on sale. I mean, Chuck and Dice and I tried it out. I would recommend it only if you're a really huge D&D fan and you want to try doing an online campaign with a bunch of friends. I'm pretty sure you can find this cheaper on PC. I'm sure it's cheaper on Steam or like Good Old Games.
Yeah.
I would say check it out. But otherwise, you're probably better off playing something else.
Yeah, you're probably better off for like speaking of which, I played a game because like I kind of had a bad taste with my mouth with that game. So I downloaded another game called The Deadly Tower of Monsters. This is an older game from 2016. Actually, no, it's only from 2016. Came out on PlayStation 4 and Microsoft Windows. I believe you can get this on GOG. It's about like $14.99 or something like that, but I think it's kind of worth it. So the Deadly Tower of Monsters is sort of this semi-top-down. It's kind of almost like a angled side view, where you do melee combat, a little bit of platforming, but not that kind of platforming where you like dive off a pit and then you're dead kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of similar to like Castlevania or that sort of Castlevania what's called Castlevania. I was going to say Chronicles. That's not it. The Symphony of the Night kind of style. When you jump off a platform, you basically just kind of keep on falling until you hit the ground. Mm-hmm. And so the concept of Deadly Tower of Monsters, it's this sort of 1940s, 1950s style science fiction. So you play this this character named I think it's like Dick Starlighter or something like that. And you're kind of like the space ranger. You land on this planet because you're going to take down...
Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger?
Kind of like Buzz Lightyear, yeah. Very similar to that. You're there to like kind of take down this like emperor, this evil emperor who's very like similar to to Ming from Flash Gordon serials. On the way, you run into Scarlet Nova, who's the daughter of this emperor who wants to take him down as well. And then you also rebuild your assistant who you went there with, Robot, who's this like bulky robot. And you can switch off in these characters. So you can play as the robot or Scarlet Nova, or you can play as Dick. And as you're playing, it's supposed to be like a movie, or like you're watching an old movie. And the director of the film is like giving commentary. It's like people are, he's pretending that he's doing like commentary on the film, and like he's just like kind of making these like funny comments of how they used to shoot things and how everything was like practical and without like computer animation. It's really humorous. And like my favorite thing is just the look of this game. The enemies look like guys in like rubber suits, just because that's what they're going for. So they're kind of like just flopping around and like coming after you, like in this like sort of weird obscure manner. They do stuff like shoot acid and stuff like that, and like it does hurt you and stuff. But it's got like a kind of a charm to it. And then on top of that, there's like this giant like gorilla that looks like King Kong with like cybernetic limbs, and he moves like a stop motion creature, which I thought was really cool too. It's like combining like two different styles like pseudomation and stop motion, and it's a real fun game. It's based on the Unreal Engine 3. It's got really good voiceover, got hilarious dialogue, whether it be the actual characters talking or the director who's doing the commentary. And I'd say pick this up. It's all action based. There's some elements where you can get into I guess RPG sort of mode where you can like improve your weapons and stuff like that. But it's not like very in depth. And like you won't be doing that forever. You'd be just kind of like you're collecting resources and you're just going to decide, well, I'm just going to upgrade this weapon or I'm going to upgrade that weapon. Really fun, and like I said, I wish this was a co-op game because it could have easily been a co-op game. But for whatever reason, it's a one-player game, and that's fine. And maybe they didn't have the budget to do it co-op. I would even prefer, maybe even couch co-op too, but because it's got it feels like a Marvel Ultimate Alliance sometimes. But yeah, there's like a lot of different little traps, little death traps you have to avoid and stuff like that. And it's a real fun game that I highly recommend. Anything else?
What else we got?
I think that was the only thing that we were talking about here.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
we're going to be planning to do another field trip someday. I think we wanted to go to Games in Tees, Tea spelled Teas. That's it's a board game store located in Burbank, and maybe we'll play a couple games. We ended up getting the Rick and Morty card game, both of us.
Total Recall.
Total Recall, and we're gonna play that and give you our thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's what it's called. It's Rick and Morty Total Recall card game.
Yeah.
So actually, we should take this to
Teas and Games. Yeah.
Teas and Games. Yeah.
Games and Teas.
Or Games and Teas. Do they serve tea there?
I don't know. I mean, they have most like board game shops do kind of serve snacks and drinks. On Saturdays at Games and Teas, you can actually bring your own beer, and you can play until I think 10 o'clock is like the cutoff. So maybe we'll do a little podcast there.
Late night podcast.
Late night podcast or something like that. We can just do it there. And
that's where we wear no pants.
Yeah. Real fun place too. If you guys know about it,
check it out.
You could check it out. Check out the One Up in Sherman Oaks. And I don't know. I got nothing.
That's all I got to.
All right. We'll see you next time. Hopefully we'll record sooner instead of taking a month. But
sorry, that's based on my time availability.
No.
But yeah, thanks for listening. And again, check out One Up Barcade in Sherman Oaks, California, and also, if you get to it, if you can attend it, the Renaissance Fair in Irwindale, California as well.
Or whenever it comes into your town.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, thanks.
All right, keep it rolling.